welcome back to By Myself But Not Alone. This is episode 31, Wichita, Kansas. At the end of the last episode, we woke up in Lubbock to a temperature that was much colder than the previous day, and based on the direction we'd be heading and the forecast, it didn't look like it was going to be doing anything other than getting much colder than it had been, so we decided it would be in our best interest not to sleep in. We'd get up early and get a nice jump on the trip. We got everything packed up and loaded into the car, and as we were doing that, I noticed that the front driver's side tire was low on air again, so we consulted our mechanic's vet. He advised that if it were him, he'd head to a gas station, fill it up with air, and then find the nearest rental agency and see if they can maybe put a new tire on there. With roughly 500 miles ahead of us, we weren't in any position to argue with that solid advice, so we said goodbye to Svet. We told him we'd see him in Indiana, and we headed out to find the nearest gas station. We got lucky, and the first station we stopped at had an air pump that worked. Quite often they don't, but this one did, so I got out and I filled the tire up with air while Michelle jumped online to find the nearest rental office. It turned out there was one right there at the local airport, so that was our next stop. It didn't take us long at all to get to the airport, and when we got to the rental office, they told us that they did not have another car to put us in, and they wouldn't until one was returned later that day. When I explained to them that that wasn't going to work out very well for us, they gave us the only other option, and that would be to take the car to Firestone ourselves and have them fix it. It was a local Firestone. They told us how to get there. They said they had an account, so there wouldn't be any kind of problem with paying and then having to be reimbursed or anything like that. The one thing it would cost us would be valuable time. But we didn't really have any other options, so we got back in the car and we headed to Firestone. It took a few hours, but they finally got everything squared away and we were on the road to Wichita. By the time we screwed around with all that, it was almost 1 o'clock, so that made the 500-mile trip seem that much longer, and we didn't pull into Wichita until about 9 o'clock. We had planned on going to a pre-party that night, but by the time we got checked into our hotel, we were completely exhausted. It was freezing outside, so we just decided we were going to skip that one. Everything would have been fine if it weren't for that little tire issue, but that trip turned out to be more of a chore than getting to any of the other shows, even El Paso. That was just exhausting, but it was still pretty exciting because I was headed to the first show of the final leg of the tour. And then the following day, the trip to Lubbock. That was another good-sized trip, and now this trip on top of it. By the time we got settled in, the thought of getting up early the next day and heading down to the arena for the show just did not seem so awesome. I can remember saying, I don't even want to go to this show. I just want to stay in bed and sleep all day. And Michelle didn't seem any more thrilled about it than I was. This is the first time on the entire tour that the road really seemed to be catching up to us, or catching up to me. Michelle would have to speak for herself, but that's the feeling that I had in that moment. But as fate would have it, that all changed the next morning when we had another chance meeting that turned out to be incredibly significant. When I woke up, Michelle was nowhere around. I assumed she was in the dining area getting juiced on coffee. That was a pretty easy call because that had pretty much become our standard. So I got up, still feeling less than thrilled about the day, and I headed down the long hallway toward the office. When I got near the final door that led outside to a common area with benches and stuff, Michelle opened the door and she said she was just coming to wake me up. She attempted to force a smile that wasn't very convincing at all, and then she said, "They've got to make your own waffle machine." And I said, "All I need is a couple gallons of coffee and this day might be tolerable." When we entered the dining area, we were greeted by a little kid who was in the middle of throwing a fit because she wanted her Fruities, and I'm assuming that was Fruit Loops, but it looked like all they had was Cheerios. So she was going back and forth with her mom. It wasn't the end of the world. She looked like she was 2.5, maybe 3 years old, but I was hoping like hell it didn't turn into a full-blown meltdown because I just did not think I could handle that in that moment. The day was already bad enough, and it really seemed like she was going to do everything she could to make it a little worse. There was also an old man sitting over in the corner reading his newspaper. He appeared to be in his late 70s, maybe early 80s. It's really hard to tell. He had a long gray beard. He was wearing a beat-up old baseball cap, and his clothes really seemed to be from a different time. They looked to be 60s, maybe early 70s. I'm not trying to sound judgmental at all. I'm just trying to paint a vivid picture of my first impression that morning. And he just seemed like a typical old man, but there was something peculiar about him. His outward appearance didn't really, in my head, it didn't really match his mannerisms. He was sitting, perfectly straight, and just the way his eyes were scanning that paper and the way he turned the paper, he really came across like a sophisticated businessman, which may have been what he was in his earlier days. Again, I wasn't trying to go too far there, but my first impression was it just seemed a little different. Anyway, we filled up our coffee cups, and as we sat down a couple tables from him, I heard him say, "There's going to be quite a celebration downtown this week." I turned in his direction and looked right at him, and when I did that, he lowered his paper and he looked right across it and he just stared at me for a few seconds and he said, "I'm not going to make it. I've got too much to do." And he raised the paper and he went back to reading it. I turned back around, I looked at Michelle, and we kind of smiled at each other as if to say, okay, this might get interesting. A couple minutes later, he lowered his paper again and he sternly said, I'm a Vietnam veteran. I did 3 tours for this great country. I turned back around and I said, I bet you've seen a lot of interesting things in your time. He just looked at me and he raised the paper back up as if he hadn't heard what I said. I turned back to Michelle. We kind of looked at each other with raised eyebrows. The coffee was kicking in. I was starting to feel a little better. And then we heard him ask where we were headed. I turned back around and I told him we were in town to see the Metallica show, and his response was, Metallica, I've heard of them. And right then his phone rang. He said, excuse me, this will only take a minute, kind of as if we were in the middle of a really long conversation. And I turned back around. I noticed that my cup was empty, so I got up to get a refill. Now, we weren't intentionally trying to mind his business, but his phone call was loud and clear, and we couldn't help but hear it. He said, no, I'm trying to get a hold of Jim, and I can't seem to reach him. We've got a lot to do on that house. We're trying to get it ready so I can move back in, and we've still got a lot of work to do on the deck yet. Okay, I'll talk to you later. And he hung up. He picked up his paper, and he went back to reading it, and right then the door opened, and a guy walked in. He looked to be about 40 years old. He looked like a construction worker or something. He had coveralls on, boots. Where we were sitting, we could see that he pulled in with a truck and a trailer. He came in and around and he stopped right next to our table, and he looked down and he said good morning to us. And then he looked at the old man and he said, how are you feeling today, Dad? The old man said, I'd be a lot better if I could get a hold of that damn brother of mine. Are you going to help us work on the house today? And the young guy said, I can't today, Dad. I got to go to work. Maybe this weekend. That didn't appear to be the answer the old guy was looking for. He raised his voice and he said, we got to get that house done before your mom gets back. The young guy said, Mom's been gone for a long time, Dad. She isn't coming back. As I heard him say that, I could just feel that he had told that old man that same thing over and over, and it just wasn't sinking in. And he wasn't talking very loud, but you can hear a tremendous amount of pain and frustration in his voice. He said, how about I come back after work and I pick you up and we go out and get something to eat? My treat, anything you want. The old man said, we don't have time for that nonsense. We got work to do. What's the big deal anyway? I don't think the old man heard his response, but Michelle and I sure did. He said, it's my birthday, Dad. He kind of said it under his breath like a loud whisper, but the pain of desperation in that moment was almost overwhelming. Not because he wasn't getting his way, not because he wasn't getting to go out for his birthday. What it sounded like was the pain of someone having to deal with watching his father slowly deteriorate right before his eyes, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. He said, I got to go to work, Dad. I'll be back tonight. You think about it. And the old man said, I'll be here, as he watched his son walk out the door. We just sat there with our lips pressed tightly together, swallowing hard. I could see Michelle's eyes kind of watering up, and I could feel the same thing happening in my own. We were kind of frozen in that moment. We just kind of stared at each other, and I finally said, let's get out of here. So we stood up. I turned to the old man and I said, it was really nice talking to you, sir. Take care of yourself and good luck with that house project. He responded, safe travels and have a good day. He waved at us as we walked out the door. We headed around and into the hallway that would lead us to our room. We were the last one on the right. As we walked along, Michelle told me she had looked the place up before I got there. That's something we pretty much regularly did at places that we stayed. And she said evidently that some of the rooms in the hotel were used to house people with special needs. And when she said that, everything kind of made sense. She said, Alzheimer's, you think? And I said, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, it could be any number of things. But at first I thought maybe the guy worked there, but as it turned out, we really had the feeling that he probably lived there. I said, man, that was sad. That was rough to watch. And she agreed. And I continued. I said, but I'm really glad we met him, though. You know, we were supposed to meet that guy, don't you? It was all predestined. We kept walking and we finally made it to our room, and when we got there, before we went in, she looked at me and she said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, before we met him, we had a long trip from Lubbock. We were completely exhausted. It's cold as hell outside. We've got another damn Metallica show to go to. Our lives suck. Meeting that old dude and the interaction with his son was the best possible reminder that we could have received. A reminder of how short life is and how you should enjoy every single step of every single day, because you never know when you're going to fall on hard times like that, or maybe even worse. That breakfast was a gift. It was another gift of the black ticket. So let's get in here, get our stuff, head on down to the arena, and have a good day, just like the old boy suggested. She smiled and said, you know, you're not right very often, hardly ever, but you're certainly right this time. Let's go have an awesome day. So we got our stuff together and we headed down to the Intrust Bank Arena in a much better mood than either of us had woken up to that morning. When we got there, we realized how cold it actually was. Unfortunately, this time the line was on the wrong side of the building. Everyone in line was freezing their ass off based on the direction of the wind. It wasn't as cold as the Ohio shows, but it was pretty damn cold. I met a couple black ticket holders that I hadn't met yet. I got to give them their patches, get their black ticket intro videos, and I found a couple other people who were willing to participate in interviews. I was happy to see our friends from Germany, Stefan and his wife Nicole. I had met and interviewed them at the South Dakota show, but that was one of the shows where my directional mic on my camera didn't work, so I wasn't able to use the footage. I explained it to them and they said they'd be happy to do it again. Right when we were just about to get started, a lady walked up. She had a microphone and she had a cameraman with her. They introduced themselves as Taylor Adams and Travis McCarty. They worked for a local news station, KAKE, and they were looking for some interviews. I told them I was about to interview Stefan and Nicole myself, but they could go first. I kind of volunteered them, and then when they were done, they asked if they could interview me. I believe that's the first time in my life I've ever been on TV, so if you'd like to see the interview, there's a link down below. I'm really not used to being on the other side of the camera, but it was too cold to be nervous, and we had a lot of fun doing that. When that was all over, I got back to interviewing Stefan and Nicole, and then shortly after that, due to the fact that it was so cold outside, the arena staff, they allowed us to go inside and line up in there. After a couple hours of hanging out with everybody inside in a much warmer line, something we were all greatly appreciative of, they finally let us into the arena. Michelle went and parked herself on the rail like she always did. I did my walk around, got video footage, got some pictures. Pretty soon Jim and Joe were on. They were doing their thing and doing it well. They got the sold out crowd of over 15,000 people ready for the show. This would be the fourth time that Metallica played Wichita, but it had been almost 15 years, so you could tell that their return was long overdue. When we heard those angels singing, the place erupted and it was on. Straightforward set list with some key rotations. Ride the Lightning, Hit the Lights, Fuel Were Out, Through the Never, Whiplash, and The Memory Remains were in to replace them. The first encore had Fight Fire with Fire replacing Battery from the previous show. When it was pick time, I got my two picks, one for Jonathan, one for Alexander, and I got a couple extra. When I got home after the tour was over, I contacted Taylor and Travis, the news lady and her cameraman, and I sent them each a pic. That made Miss Taylor extremely happy. We couldn't find a group photo after the show, but as cold as it was, we didn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time looking for it. We headed back to the car. It was quite a little walk. When we got to our car, we realized we had parked right next to Dell from Kansas City. So he was talking to Miss Summer from Texas. We got to say goodnight to them. I'm really not sure why this is, but it seems like I can remember the last people I said goodnight to after each show. And there in Wichita, it happened to be Miss Summer and Dell. When we got in the car, I said, "We had a great day," in reference to the old man. Michelle said, "Yes, we did, and we'll do it again tomorrow." With that, we headed back to the hotel, knowing that for once we were going to get to sleep in pretty late. The trip to Kansas City the next day, which should take us just under 3 hours, so that was good news. I was kind of hoping that we'd get to see that old guy one more time, but by the time we got up and in for our coffee, there was nobody around. So we packed up our stuff and we headed out to find the nearest McDonald's. So I'd like to say thanks to that old man and his son, although they'll certainly never see this. They popped into our lives at just the right time, and I don't think I'm ever going to forget either one of them. I'd like to thank Miss Taylor and Travis. It was really cool meeting you guys that day. I had a lot of fun watching you interview Stefan and Nicole, and then I had a lot of fun being interviewed myself. I want to give a big thank you to the crowd in Wichita. You guys rocked that arena that night, and you really made it a fun place to be. And to everyone else, I'd like to say, as always, thank you for watching. If you like what we have going on here, we'd appreciate it greatly if you consider subscribing to the channel. Give us a like, a dislike, whatever the case may be. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Next stop, Kansas City, Missouri. We'll see you there. Until then, rock on. So who are you and where are you from?
I'm Alex. I'm from Dallas, Texas.
My name's Dalton from Wichita, Kansas, here to see Metallica today.
I'm Nicole from Germany.
And my name is Stefan or Steven from Germany too.
All right. Are you guys married?
Yes.
How long have you been a Metallica fan?
My whole life, so 25 years.
All right. Have you seen them live before?
This will be my 5th time.
About 9.5 years now.
All right.
Got me into metal.
Have you seen them live before?
This will be my first time.
You're about to get your world rocked.
Fuck yeah.
30 years and more.
Both of you?
First concert, 1991 together.
Together?
Together, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
A Metallica couple is what I call
Metallica
that.
is my second love and my first one.
There you go. Can you narrow it down to a favorite song?
Gotta be one.
Alrighty, how about favorite album?
It stops up for And Justice and Ride the Lightning.
All right, good choices. Favorite band member, past or present?
James.
Oh, this is going right along. And is it possible for you to narrow it down to one favorite song?
That's a tough one. My favorite might have to be Creeping Death. It's a hard one to beat.
It's a great song. How about favorite album?
That's a whole nother one too. Kill 'Em All will always be my overall favorite, I think.
Okay. How about favorite band member, past or present?
Kirk Hammett.
All right.
He loves his horror.
Can you narrow it down to one favorite song?
Yeah. Orion. Orion.
There we go.
Okay.
I like one, and I like Spit Out the Bone from the new album. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I really like that too.
It's very powerful, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's maybe hope we see it tonight.
Yes.
We hope it too,
Yes.
What about favorite album?
For me, it's Master of Puppets.
I like the Black Album. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite band member, past or present?
No favorite.
You just like Metallica.
Yeah. It's a family.
What do you think about Brewer opening the show?
It's gonna be my first time seeing him, so it's gonna be interesting.
So you taking an open mind into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard good things about him.
This will be my first time seeing a comedian open for a metal show. It's strange, but I'm open to it. See how it goes tonight.
Right on.
Oh, we have seen them, and it's okay. But we prefer, or I prefer a band.
Okay.
Yeah, a band.
Same?
In Quellertag in Germany.
Yeah.
They are very powerful. They are from Norway? No?
Yeah,
yes,
they're from
they are
Norway.
from Norway. And they are good openers. Really like them, yes.
We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Do you
sir.
mind if I ask what you do for a living?
I actually work at a strip club.
I think I got a girl that worked at a strip club, but we haven't had the guy yet. Right on. We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans. Would you mind me asking what you do for a living?
I'm a corrections officer, actually.
Alrighty. We come from all walks of life as Metallica fans. What do you do for a living? Your job? Work? What do you do for a living? Job?
Yeah, I work.
What do you do?
Oh, it's in the steel industry in Germany.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I work with heavy metal.
Okay, there you go. Is there one person in your life that you solely credit with turning you on to the band in the first place?
My dad. My dad's been a huge fan, so grew up listening to it with him.
Is your dad here?
My dad's not here. He's back home, but
Okay.
he's still alive.
Still a Metallica fan? I thought maybe he was going to come down to the venue.
Oh, no.
Alrighty. Final question, and I'll leave you alone. If the band members themselves should happen to see this, do you have a message for them?
Thanks for everything. I appreciate it. Y'all mean so much to me in my life.
Do you have one person in your life that you credit with solely turning you on to the band in the first place? Or how did you come about being a Metallica fan?
Probably my brother. He used to listen to a lot of metal, and he started playing stuff as I was a kid, and that's what kind of interested me in it.
Older brother, obviously. Final thing, and I'll leave you alone. If the band members themselves should happen to see this, do you have a personal message for any or all of them?
I just got to say thank you, because, my life completely changed the day I heard fucking Enter Sandman. It put me down the rabbit hole and all these bands that I got on here just from hearing this, so thank you guys. It's been a fucking honor.
How did you become a Metallica fan in the first place?
Oh, I don't know. I like the music. First steps was Scorpions and so on, and are not hard enough. And there are some we heard. Oh, Metallica. Wow. Yeah, and that's it.
Friends, older
yeah.
brothers and sisters?
No, it's from France.
Okay.
France, yeah.
Yep, that's a good answer. Okay, one final thing and I'll leave you alone. Do you have a message for the band if they happen to see this? Do you have any words you'd like to say to Metallica?
Please go on. Don't stop.
Don't stop the music, yeah.
We will see them in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
All righty.
Then we have more time.
acting like a maniac. But I